This is my last video of 2023, and it's a big one. We have the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra versus the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And it goes without saying that you can't really go wrong with any of these phones if you choose one of them, but when you put them head to head, who comes out on top as the best smartphone in 2023? Let's finally put this question to bed. Let's go. From just looking at these phones, you can already tell they are premium smartphones. I have the S23 Ultra in lavender that is 6.8 inches tall, has an aluminum frame, as well as having Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and on the back. The corners are more rounded than square, which makes it easier to hold this without a case. That being said, it is quite heavy. It weighs about 237 grams, so be careful to not let this fall on the floor or worse, your face. Now at the bottom, you have one of the best speakers on a smartphone. They're loud, they have a punchy bass, and best of all, the sound does not really diminish as the volume increases. And right beside it, we have the S Pen, and it is great if you love scribbling a few things down or drawing other things. If you don't like doing any of these things, then it might not just be for you. It's not for me, and I don't think it will ever be. And personally, I'll take out the S Pen for a bigger battery, but that's just me. However, I recognize that this is important to some people, and of course it does have its uses. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is also very similar to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but this time the corners are not as sharp as they are more rounded, which makes it easier to hold without having any issues. It is 6.7 inches tall with a titanium frame all around the phone. Yes, we know during the launch of the 15 Pro Max, titanium wasn't having the best PR in the world. But 3 months later, and with my experience, I haven't seen any design flaw, if that makes sense. Also, thanks to the titanium build, the iPhone 15 Pro Max does not feel like a brick. It is lighter, and you can use this for an extended period of time. So the question is, who has the better design? In this case, it is the one that obviously looks the best. It has the better color and of course the better form factor. And looking at these phones side by side, it is the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the natural titanium color. Apple might get a few things wrong, but they did not get anything wrong with the natural titanium. The displays of the 15 Pro Max and the S23 Ultra are amazing. It is also safe to say that Apple didn't really upgrade their displays here, so it's really on par with the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. It has the 2000 nits of brightness, LTPO panel, a 120Hz refresh rate, all that jazz. The S23 Ultra is a QHD Plus display with a similar refresh rate and 1750 nits of peak brightness. Even though the iPhone has a brighter display, I noticed when watching videos on YouTube, on Netflix or Amazon Prime, the S23 Ultra appeared brighter and sustained that brightness for a longer period of time than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Should that be a big deal for you? I don't think so, because both of these phones do their jobs pretty well. However, if I had to choose one phone to consume content on, it'll be the Galaxy S23 Ultra because it doesn't have that dynamic island, which is intrusive. Some may argue that you notice it less, which is true, but with the S23 Ultra, it just has a cleaner look. And when it comes to unlocking these phones, it is hard not to talk about Face ID because it is honestly one of the best ways to unlock your phone. It is fast, it is seamless, and it's just straightforward to the point. Now, while the S23 Ultra also has face recognition, it doesn't come close to what Face ID has in my experience. But regardless of all that, the S23 Ultra has a better display with a more secure way to unlock your phone than Face ID. Before we continue this video, I'd like to give a special shout out to Fura for sponsoring this video. For the last few weeks, Fura is what I have been using to edit my short form content on Instagram and YouTube. And one of the first things that blew my mind about Fura is the sheer number of features they have, especially the AI features. My favorite feature so far within this is the video effects tab and the LUTs tab, because one, I shoot in S-Log3, so finding the right LUT can be a pain when trying to color grade your video. But Fura has a plethora you can choose from. If you're looking for a colorful and bright LUT that tells a story that you're looking for, they have that in store. If you're looking for a more dark and cinematic tone, they also have it. And if you shoot short form content, then the video effects tab is gonna be your best friend. You can use the AI portrait to make different effects, and you can go crazy with it. For one, you can make multiple clones of yourself. Now, if you want to remove the background of your video and let the video just be you, You can do that by pressing the human segmentation feature. If you want music too, it has a whole library that caters to different genres that fits your story. Not gonna lie, Fura really took me by surprise, and it will do exactly the same thing for you. So if you want to level up your video and your editing game this December and right before Christmas, then hit that link in my description to get started. And thanks again to Fura for sponsoring this video. The battery life on these phones have been very interesting because they go head to head in every way. They both will give you 9 to 10 hours of screen on time without even trying, to be honest. It can give you a whole day or even 2 days if you're a conservative user, probably more, but that's just really pushing it. Some people might say the S23 Ultra's battery is better because it has more features, which is true theoretically, but I'm just basing it off what is being presented in front of me. So with that, I cannot really give a winner in this category. Both are just very good, so I'm just going to give this round a tie. When it comes to software and performance, the iPhone 15 Pro Max has the A17 Pro, while the S23 Ultra has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. Performance has been great on both these phones, and over the last few months, there hasn't really been any issues that sticks out whatsoever. Both can handle FPS games like COD Mobile, for example, but that being said, an iPhone does not give me a lot to work with. I find myself using the S23 Ultra a lot more in terms of my productivity, and I know, of course, Apple created the dynamic island for multitasking purposes, but it doesn't just give me enough for it to warrant a permanent spot at the top of my display. And I've said this before, but the dynamic island feels like it's Apple's way of solving a hardware issue with software. When you think of multitasking, it's all about having, 2 apps open at the same time, or using your S Pen for different purposes, or even using Samsung DeX. Hell, just a simple thing like swiping left or swiping right to go back is essential as a standalone phone. These are the things that Apple and the iPhone just cannot do at the moment. However, with other Apple devices presented in front of you, the iPhone becomes a more powerful tool when paired with your laptop or AirPods or even your Apple Watch. The ecosystem comes alive and delivers a seamless workflow that is hard for most people to get out of. One of the most recurring questions in my YouTube comments each time is which of these phones have a better camera system. Like I always say, pictures are mostly based on preference, how bright the picture is, how colorful the saturation can be, and many more. The selfie cameras for both phones are good, but when you closely look at it, you'll notice 2 things. One, the iPhone 15 Pro Max makes my skin a lot darker than it should be, while the S23 Ultra has more saturation with its picture profile. This really just boils down to its software and how it interprets darker skin. From my personal view, the iPhone is the closest thing to what my skin kind of looks like, even if it's darker. Now, while it may be darker, the S23 Ultra makes me look orange, and I don't really like both, but when choosing the lesser of 2 evils, it will definitely be the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The wide-angle lens on the 15 Pro Max shoots from 4 different focal lengths, 24, 28, and 35, and it is great to have those options, but for the sake of this comparison, I shot both using a 24mm focal length. Shots of the sky or the trees and general objects in your daily life will look more colorful and punchier on the S23 Ultra. When you zoom into the Max, the S23 Ultra has more details of the trees, but when you look at the houses or the buildings next to it, the iPhone captures more detail in my opinion than the S23 Ultra. Same thing with the other shots, but I will say saturation does look nice when it's shooting pictures of the sky, so it just comes down to preference like I've been saying. When it comes to video, I shot this in ProRes log, 4K at 30 frames per second, and the S23 Ultra in 8K. With ProRes log, this allows you to capture much more detail as well as dictate the type of footage you want in terms of color. Now, even though the S23 Ultra shoots in 8K, the 15 Pro Max is still ahead in terms of detail, color balance, and especially dynamic range. With all these things that I just said, which of these phones should you choose? First things first, you can't really go wrong with any of these phones, as cliche as that sounds. They are just good in all major categories. They both bring something to the table the other does not. But if you're also in the Apple ecosystem and you want to break away, the S23 Ultra is a solid phone to get. Also, considering the S24 Ultra is out next year, there will be a huge discount on this phone, so that is something to consider. Thank you guys so much for working with me in 2023. It has been a huge year in terms of growth and exposure, and I'm hoping within 2024 it will even be bigger for the KJOS brand. So for one last time, smash that like button, and if you got any value, subscribe, as this goes a long way for me. My name is KJOS, and I will catch you guys in the new year.